So you've hired a community manager, but you don't really know how to manage them. We're going to be talking about that in this episode. I recently spoke at an event and I was asked this question. And so I wanted to share the answer with you because I think it's something that people don't really think about. We think, oh, I need a community manager. I'm going to get them on board. And oh, they've been through Shana's training. They're just going to take off and run, which in some ways they will, but they still need to be led. They still need to be managed by you. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in this episode. What do I need to do to manage the community manager? I love this question because it's one thing to hire somebody. It's another thing to be able to lead them well. I don't know about y'all, but I have definitely hired people and been like, they suck at their job. And then I turn around and I'm like, I actually suck at leading them. That's really the problem. I know why I hired them. They're actually really good. I'm actually really bad at this. Or it was in a really busy season. It wasn't a time for me to hire. So I have a client and dear friend. She has like 14,000 members in her membership. She has an 8-figure business. I've worked with her for 2 years. Her husband is a secret weapon. He is such a genius. He like runs all of the operations of their business. And we were actually hanging out last week and he shared just this little piece of advice that I'm going to pass to you all. So I've never shared this before. I don't even know if he's shared it with people before, but he just said like our job as leaders is to define what the game is, help people understand the rules of the game, make sure they're clear on how they win the game, train them on the skills that they need to win, and then coach them on the mindset that will keep them from winning. So like these 5 elements, like what's the game, right? What's the end goal for us? So they need the big vision of your business, not just, hey, we have this membership, your job is to manage the community, but like, this is my mission, this is my vision. Here's how the membership fits into that. Here's our revenue goals, like involve them in all of that. Get them involved in the bigger picture. They need to understand the bigger game. Rules of the game is making sure that you have really clear roles and responsibilities for them, which you'll get inside of that job description. Of course, you'll tweak that for specifically what you need, but they need to know like, this is my playground. This is how we operate. And this is my role. Like I am the point guard of the basketball team. They need to know that, right? And then they need to understand how to win at their role, which means you need to be really clear on what that success metric is for them. It may be refund rate, it may be retention rate, it may be for some of you that have Facebook groups. Facebook allows you to track how many active members you have in a group in a 28-day period or a 7-day period. And I will often track that number. Like let's say there's 100 active people out of 200 paying course participants. Then I go, okay, that's a 50% active member rate. So 50% of our people were active in our group this week. So maybe you say the goal is 80% active or 70% active. You can set a baseline and then set a goal, but they need to know how to win. For some people, the win is, hey, I'm spending 10 hours a week in the community right now. I'd like to spend 2 hours a week in the community right now and not see our retention rate drop or our engagement drop. If you can make that happen, that's a win. But we got to be really specific because they're always going to be prioritizing and they need to know how to prioritize based on how they win. Training them on the skills. This is where a lot of people in the past, there hasn't been anything other than like a Facebook group, how to manage a Facebook group. And so if you don't have those skills of managing a community or you feel like you've just been flying by the seat of your pants, that's where something like my course comes in where they can go and get that training. But you just want to make sure they're either coming with the skills or that they're getting trained on the skills so that they're not just thrown to the wolves to do their job. And then coaching on the mindset, which means you got to have regular check-ins, especially early on. There's a really great book for any of you who have teams called The 1 Minute Manager. I love, love, love. He writes these books. He writes really short story-based business books that are so good and principle driven. And the 1 Minute Manager talks a lot about how you manage very closely early on so that eventually you have to do very little management. So that coaching on the mindset is a lot of the early work of having regular touch points with somebody when they're new off of those as you've been able to coach them through how to think strategically, how to problem solve, because that's how we empower, right? And our role is to equip and to empower. So we're equipping them with the rules of the game, with the skills of the game, and we're empowering them by coaching them, giving them feedback, by when they say, hey, I'm not sure how to respond to this, we don't say that's your job, it's not mine. We say, oh, yeah, let me show you how I would respond to that. Or let me respond to it. Make sure to add it to your what Shana would say document. That's what I tell my team. I'm like, you need a what Shana says document that you can use in the future so that you know how to answer questions like this in the future. That may be your team saying, hey, I give my team full permission. It's actually kind of scary, but I tell my team, how you win is we release a podcast every Tuesday. An email goes out for that podcast. A reel goes out for that podcast. A LinkedIn article goes out for that podcast, and the podcast gets on the website. This is how you win the podcast game. If you tell me to review an email and I don't review it, you send the email. That's on me, right? You give me a clear deadline. I don't meet it. You get to send the email, and I have to learn the lesson if it's not the email I wanted to go out, right? If I don't record a podcast episode for you, we're batched like all the way through August. But if I don't record a podcast episode for them and they're out of podcast, they have full permission to replay an old podcast, to pull from any of my speaking engagements or anything like that. Okay, so I have empowered my team to move forward when I'm the bottleneck. Okay, so that's like just a little thing about equipping and empowering our team. Okay, so we know what they're supposed to be doing, we know what to look for, and we know how to support them when they get on our team.